With the new Premier League season fast approaching, here are some of my Liverpool FC ones to watch. And no pun intended, but shooting up first, we have Darwin Nunez. I mean, listen, if you're doing a ones to watch video, where else can you start but the man himself, the agent of chaos, Darwin Nunez. This is a guy who isn't even just a Liverpool fan player to watch. He's one for all the fans, really. This is someone who, he signed for £85 million, a big price tag and weight on his shoulders, and really has put him under the magnifying glass ever since. But seasons 1 and 2, I've been one of his most staunch supporters. I've always backed the guy and said, better things are to come. He's got everything there except the finishing. Clearly is the one thing he needs to develop, that composure. But even last season, when people were starting to crack and more Liverpool fans were turning against him, everyone would keep asking me, when do you think enough is enough? When do you think that you reach a point with Darwin Nunez where he has to level his game up? Well, this is it for me. I've always said to people, the third season for me is where I'm going to call it a make or break season. If there isn't a big enough progression, this could be it where I draw the line and say, yeah, we may need to move him on and look at another option. But he does have everything. Even, you talk about seasons 1 and 2, the progression was there. We saw him step up his off-the-ball work. He went from someone being an out-and-out striker, just constantly looking to make the runs in behind, to really working on his press game and becoming part of a more cohesive front line for Liverpool and looking more the part. He became more of a threat as well, just really creating a lot more chances for not just himself, but for his teammates, and keeping up, the real threat he was, the nightmare to defend, physically strong, really fast. He had so much about his game, being in the right places at the right time to get so many chances. It's just that final part to the puzzle, really, that composure to, we've seen him score some absolute blinders, but, your bread and butter for a striker, the ones you expect them to bury, that it just falls to you and you just put them in the back of the net, or you're played through on goal. And these are probably some of the ones where he's maybe worse at, where he's got too much time to think, but just having the composure to pick your spot, know the right, little piece of movement you need to get it in. And that will come with practice. Hopefully this summer he gets a lot of time to just, he's had a delayed pre-season because of his involvement in the Copa America, but hopefully he'll get some time to really work on that. It is just repetition. We've heard former Premier League strikers come and talk about the Darwin Nunez problem as it's bigged up by the media. But listen, he gets that level of his game just slightly finer, and he will be an absolutely massive threat. Like, we're talking one of the top scorers in the Premier League easily if he just puts away. Because if you look at his numbers last season as well, 30 goals and assists in all comps, well, above 30 in all comps, was not too shabby. And even in the Premier League, I think it's about 11 or 12 Premier League goals. And when the big chances he misses, if he just puts away like half of them, you're looking at a 20 plus goal a season Premier League striker, which is, more than you can ask for, really. It's enough. And then the ceiling is, it can be raised by him. So hopefully he finds that level to him to just really put more of those away, because we need it. As a squad last season, there was a huge finishing issue throughout. And it wasn't just Nunez, Diaz, Salah, all guilty of it as well. Jota probably the one diamond in there that was just really clinical with his chances. Gakpo, not too bad as well in terms of, the quality of converting chances. And that's another thing that stepped out. I talked about how Nunez stepped up a lot of his game. The one thing that sticks out like a sore thumb is his chance conversion rate. That has not really shifted. Despite his numbers going up from season 1 to 2, he's just had more chances to work with, which is partly through his own work as well. But yeah, chance conversion, man, that is the name of the game for Darwin Nunez this season. Whether he'll do it or not remains to be seen, but he's shown in glimpses for Uruguay recently before the Copa America and going into it as well, and stints for Liverpool. This guy can be really deadly. Let's see him do it for a season. Let's see him live up to the expectation. Please, Darwin, we need it. All right, so next up we have Cody Gakpo. Now, this is a man who's just had another incredible international tournament at the Euros with Netherlands off the back of that 2022 World Cup. I think across those two international tournaments, no European player has scored more goals than Cody Gakpo other than Kylian Mbappe, who only actually scored 1 goal this Euros, I believe. He really got quite a few at the World Cup. But this is a man who I don't think his ability has been questioned, despite a lot of frustration about Gakpo at times. I remember there were stints where he was coming off the bench and not really influencing games, and people were like, what does this guy do? Like, is he adding anything? Man, he looks lazy, he looks slow. This is a guy who's just come off the bench. He should be fresh. He should be changing the game. And I think a lot of criticism was unfair on him to an extent, because he was someone whose confidence must have taken a hit. He was very unselfishly the plug the gap player for Liverpool at times, playing in midfield, right wing even, and then of course striker and left wing often being the two positions he was switched between the most, where he himself has preferred the left wing. He did it for the Netherlands so well at these international tournaments. So it's clear that he needs to be given a real adequate run at the team, a consistent patch where we can really judge him and go, okay, you've had X amount of games to really showcase yourself in this side and make it work, which I don't think he's been given that full opportunity yet. And I think, the issue was just how does he fit into the system? Everyone knew his ability. Everyone says this is a really, really good technical player, smart player as well, but maybe just doesn't quite fit the system. Well, Jurgen Klopp's unfortunately left us, but what that does present is a new opportunity, new manager, new slightly tweaks to the system, style of play, and that might benefit Cody Gakpo now. And that's going to be the question for him this season. Can he really push himself up in Arne Slot's plans? That Dutch connection might come in handy, but obviously it's going to be what he shows on the pitch more than any national benefits that will help him out. And I think he's got it in him. I really do want him to succeed. Of course, we've got a really lucky situation in a sense at Liverpool where between him, Nunez, Diaz, Jota, Salah, we've got a real strong depth across the front. But with typically three players playing in those positions, it obviously means two are going to get left out a lot. But we have rotation, and Gakpo for me doesn't necessarily have to cement himself as a starter for me to be pleased as a Liverpool fan. But I just want to see him get some good runs in the team throughout the season. And just really feel like he's more part of it. It did feel like he was a bit of an outsider last season. And like I say, it hasn't quite lined up for him yet, but this season is his chance to really explode on and make a difference, because this is a Liverpool attack that faltered a fair bit last season. Despite still being one of the top scoring sides in Europe, they just weren't clinical. So there's a real opportunity for him to come in and stamp his mark when he's back to Liverpool pre-season. So we'll see how that goes. Possibly in his preferred left-hand side. I would like to see him and Diaz as the two left wingers, getting the rotation there. Nunez and Jota up top, and then obviously we have Salah on the right. Maybe Elliott or a Ben Doak can come in there. But for Gakpo, that left wing spot, he really, now is his chance to grab it and put himself forward. So big eyes are going to be on him this season. All right, so up next on my list, I have Dominik Szoboszlai. And at the time of recording this, it's now a few days after we played our first pre-season game of the season. The first official one, Preston one, was behind doors. Come on, let's just forget that one even happened. But Dominik Szoboszlai got the winner in that game, the only goal of the game, first one of the Arne Slot era. And it was a brilliantly taken goal in that slightly more advanced position for him as one of kind of two number 10s in that formation. Obviously, we didn't have a striker or a real number 9 available to us, but good link up with Salah and a good goal. But of course, looking at what he can bring to the season now, it's just, more or less what we saw at the start of last season. When he signed around the same time as Alexis McAllister, and Maka was kind of the one that took more view in the public eye. The 35 million price tag, what a bargain it was. World Cup winner, did really well with Brighton before in the Premier League. So Liverpool fans, we were more excited about him, I feel, than Szoboszlai. 60 million from Leipzig, good player, but we were like, is he going to be worth the price tag? Then the season started and Maka was struggling, having been shoehorned into the number 6 role, and Szoboszlai was the one shining in that midfield, and he just took over everyone's minds, really. The number 8, we obviously, big Liverpool fans will be massive fans of Stevie, an absolute club legend. And since we obviously had Cater in between, he didn't quite do as well with the number. Szoboszlai there was a bit of a throwback in that sense, seeing a real kind of all-action midfielder, getting in the nitty-gritty and defending, getting back, but also going forward, having a real long-range strike on him. And things were looking so good for him. He scored belters against Villa, Leicester early in the season as well, I remember. And, he was really looking like he was going to be one of the Premier League signings of the season. But then he had a bit of a fall-off. He had a spell out injured as well. And then as the season went on, his influence on games really started to suffer and seemed a bit stifled. And ultimately he was getting trolled online by rival fans for his expected hair flicks and so on, and stares into the camera. Not often you get trolled about being good looking, but you've got people who've got to find something, isn't it, these days? But that was the thing for him. It was just the fact that he wasn't influencing games. He wasn't doing as much in terms of making a difference on the pitch. So that's where the conversation went. And of course, as a Liverpool fan myself and many others, we were definitely wanting to see a bit more of Harvey Elliott over him. So that it wasn't really a great spell for him, and that's going to be his challenge for the season now. Can he consistently perform to the way he started that season? Can he keep it going all season? Because there did seem to be a bit of a burnout with him. He almost, early season seemed to just be doing so much running, getting everywhere. He was creating, and the next minute he'd be back sliding in on someone, getting a really, really good tackle in. I mean, just talking about it, it's getting me sweating. That and the fact that it's like, probably still 25 degrees late in the evening here in the UK. God, love London heat. Getting back to Szoboszlai, like, he was doing so much that I think maybe it was a bit too much for him. It was a real intense period, playing a lot of games, and then burned himself out a bit and couldn't really rediscover that as the season went on. Well, he's had an off season now to rest with the pre-season. Of course, he did play a part in the Euros. I thought it wasn't too bad for Hungary. I think the expectations were maybe a bit too high for him in terms of people expecting him to maybe carry that Hungary team out of the group, but it was a difficult group for them, and I thought they showed up with their performances to a decent level. So yeah, it wasn't bad for him, but he's going to have a full pre-season with us now. So yeah, really good opportunity for him to get his fitness levels up and ready for a season where I want to see him say, I'm that guy, step into that Liverpool midfield and cement that spot. And, the player we're going to talk about soon who might be competing for the same spot. But for me, Szoboszlai, it's like, he's got all the attributes about him. He's a national team captain already. He's got everything there to go on and really over the next few years make it his own position and make himself a staple piece of that Liverpool starting 11. So I'm hoping he can do it. But yeah, it's the stage is yours, Szoboszlai, essentially for this season. Okay, coming towards the last three names on my list now, which will probably speed up, especially the last two, as there's a little less for me to say about them, I feel. But this fourth one is one we've just hinted to with the talk about Szoboszlai. It's Harvey Elliott. This is a man who will be possibly competing for the same spot, but also potential, understudy to Salah on the right wing. Again, he's a player he's kind of shuffled between positions and maybe doesn't get a full run out on the team because he hasn't managed to stamp his foot down on one position where he's the clear standout option to be starting there, despite a phase last season where Szoboszlai wasn't really cutting it, and we did want to see more of Elliott in there because he was doing so well. And I think that's another difficult thing as well. If I look back at Harvey Elliott's season last season, there's not a lot I can look at and say like, oh, that is where I think he really needed to step up his game. Like, I think he had a really good season in the spells that he was being given. And when Klopp came towards the end, I remember one of the interviews he had where he was asked about any potential regrets or something along those lines for the last season, and he said one of them, or one of the few, would just be that he didn't start Harvey Elliott more or give him more minutes. So that is a big compliment to get from a Jurgen Klopp on his way out. And I think for Harvey Elliott, he has to now step up to the next manager and show that he does deserve more minutes because he played really well. So it's just about getting in there, making sure he's noticed, because his new manager, he's got to make sure he's one of the first names getting onto the team sheet if he can. But for me, I think it's just, he's gone past that kind of youth phase. He's still young in age, but he's not really, that inexperienced guy who just came in. He's had a few years under his belt now. He's had a season last season where he did get a lot more minutes than before, perhaps. And now it's just time to keep stepping that up, really. Again, difficult to pinpoint something specific he really should be doing, other than just getting in the face of Arne Slot. But we'll have a lot of rotation this season, so it is just more or less continuing what he was doing last year, trying to add a few more goals and assists to his game, really. Get those numbers up, the things that stand out a bit more. But performance-wise, I think he was pretty damn good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him playing again this season. All right, so fifth on the list is, which one should I go for first? I'm going to go with Bajcetic because I think this is one that probably maybe in a few more people's minds than my other option. But yeah, Stefan Bajcetic is a player who ultimately, he had all of last season out injured. He came back at I think literally the minutes he got against Wolves might have been his only minutes. If I'm not wrong, maybe correct me in the comments. But I think, he barely got an opportunity, which is really, really sad because the season before, when we were really awful, Fabinho went through a phase of looking really leggy. Henderson, players like that were getting rotated out. Bajcetic got a run and was really, really good. This real spark and excitement to our midfield. And then, unfortunately for him, just when he was on the rise, he was making a name for himself, having a breakout season, he gets a really bad injury that keeps him out basically a whole season. And for him now, it's just going to be a case of making sure he's not forgotten about, making sure he comes back in and tries to really rediscover that. It's going to be difficult coming back from a long injury like that. I don't expect him to be playing a heap of minutes, and it's why me personally, I do still want to see Liverpool sign a DM to actually complement Endo, compete with him for that DM spot. But for Bajcetic, it is going to be a case of just keeping himself fit, getting the minutes in the cups where he can, and just standing out. And then, yeah, if we see an injury or we see a player in a bad rut of form that needs to be dropped, that's going to be his chance to really get in there and start to continue to make that name for himself and pick up where he left off. It's going to be difficult, but that's the task for him, really. And it'll be interesting to see how much game time he really does get under Arne Slot this season. All right, and the final player for me to keep an eye out on is Kostas Tsimikas. Now, this might be a weird one. I say weird one just because I don't think he's maybe on the radar of many people as one to watch for the season. But the reason I'm interested is because we picked this guy up as a good prospect, someone who we look to be kind of an understudy to Andrew Robertson. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't always worked out for him. He's come in and he's not necessarily stamped his mark on the second choice left back role. Especially looking at last season when we saw Robbo go out for 4 months injured. Tsimikas came in and originally started to do well, but eventually Joe Gomez got preferred to him. I think actually it was an injury to Tsimikas first that then gave Gomez the role of filling in there. But then he just did so well that Tsimikas never really got too many chances to come back in. And then the few he did, I feel like he maybe didn't impress too much from what I remember. But yeah, that for him, that is going to be his goal for the season. That's something I want to see. Can he step it up in the games where I think Robbo will still be the starting left back, but in the games where we're rotating and Tsimikas gets his chance, can he really step in and make more of a statement about his ability to come in and play that position? Because ultimately, the way I see it as well with Robbo is he's been picking up injuries a bit more frequently over the last couple of years. I think he's actually currently out missing our US pre-season with an injury he was carrying into the Euros with Scotland and seems to have aggravated. But we're going to need a succession plan for Robbo. He's someone who maybe has a year or two left in him, I would feel, and we're going to need to start looking at the next person to take over that left back spot. And Tsimikas was meant to be that guy, but whether he still will be, I don't know. Is he even going to still be here beyond this summer is something that remains to be seen. But if he is, this is it for him this season. Otherwise, I can see Liverpool being in the market for a left back in January or even next summer, I think. So for Tsimikas, that is it, really. That is the name of the game for him, for his season. Something I want to see is this guy going to be a serious left-back candidate for us as a second choice of the season, but going forward, potentially our starting left-back. He's got a lot to prove, but yeah, that is it for me, for the 6 Liverpool players that I've selected as ones to watch. Of course, if you're a Liverpool fan, let me know in the comments down below. If you've got any other options, I'm sure there are plenty in there that will be interesting choices. And on the ones that I've mentioned, of course, is there anything I've left out about them? What are you particularly interested in seeing with these? But more than anything, looking forward to the season kicking off again in, I think, 2 to 3 weeks now. So, yeah, up the Reds. Hopefully a strong season from us and, yeah, from every player in the squad, not just the 6 I want to look at. Until the next video, though, take care.